Picture a night, a very long time ago. The sun has gone down, there's a fire, and a small group of people sitting around it. They've eaten, the children aren't asleep yet, there's nothing that needs doing, and there are still hours before anyone wants to sleep. We tend to imagine ancient life as nothing but work, finding food, staying warm, staying alive, and a lot of it was, but not all of it. People who lived tens of thousands of years ago had evenings exactly like this one, long, quiet stretches of time with nothing in them. So, here's a simple question. What did they do with that time? It turns out they did many of the same things you do. They just did them with what they had. Let's start with music. In a cave in southern Germany, archaeologists found a thin tube carved from the wing bone of a bird. It has small holes spaced along its length, one for each finger. It's a flute, and it's about 40,000 years old. Think about what that means. Someone sat down, picked up a hollow bone, and carefully made a thing whose only purpose was to make sound. There's no practical reason to do that. You can't eat a flute, it doesn't keep you warm, but somebody wanted music, so they made an instrument to play it. We don't know what the song sounded like, the melodies are gone, but the instrument is real, and you can still hold one. When you hum to yourself without thinking or tap a rhythm on a table, you're doing the same thing they were doing 40,000 years ago. Then there were the children. Children played then, the same way they play now. We can't dig up a game of chase or a round of hide and seek. Those don't leave anything behind. We find the smaller traces. On the walls of some caves there are handprints pressed into the rock, and a few of them are small, child-sized. We find little stones worn smooth and marked. We find the ankle bones of animals, the small, knobbly ones, which people all over the ancient world use like dice. You toss them, you see how they land, you play. Somewhere there are flat rocks with lines scratched into them, the board for a game whose rules nobody remembers anymore. And there were toys. In some places, people carved small figures from bone or stone, little animals, small shapes that fit in a child's hand. We can't always be sure whether a small carving was a toy, a charm, or just something someone liked. But children have always wanted little versions of the world around them. A carved horse, a doll of twisted grass or leather, a smooth stone kept in a pocket. These things don't last, so we only catch glimpses of them. The real center of the evening, though, was probably the fire itself. People have studied groups who still live close to the old way, hunting and gathering, and they notice something. During the day, when people talk, the talk is practical. Where's the water? Who's going where? What needs doing? But at night, around the fire, the talking changes. People tell stories about other people far away, stories about how the world began, jokes that make everyone laugh. The fire at night was the place where the day's work was set down and something else began. And they danced. We can't hear the music and we can't see the steps, but we know it happened because every group of people who has ever been studied dances. It's one of those things that seems to come with being human. You gather, there's a rhythm, and bodies start to move. And some nights were bigger than others. Not every evening was the same small fire. Now and then, when there was enough food, or when the season brought people together, separate groups would meet. A large animal had been killed, or the nuts had ripened, or it was simply the time of year when everyone came together. These were the special days. More people than usual, more food than usual, more noise, faces you hadn't seen in months. On those nights, there was more music, more dancing, more storytelling, and probably more than a few people who ate or drank a little too much. A feast is a very old idea. Long before anyone built a town, people understood the simple pleasure of a crowd, a fire, and more food than you strictly need. People also like to make things and to make themselves look a certain way. In a cave in South Africa, someone took a lump of red earth, ground it into powder, and used it as paint. That was around 70,000 years ago. In the same kinds of places, people drilled tiny holes in seashells and strung them together to wear. Beads, jewelry, things that do nothing at all except look good and tell other people something about you. And on the walls of caves, deep in the dark, they painted horses, lions, bison, herds of animals moving across the stone. To make these, someone had to carry light into a cave, mix paint, and work in the cold and the quiet, sometimes for a long time. Not because the pitcher would feed anyone, just so it would be there to look at. On clear nights, there was also the sky. With no lights anywhere on the ground, the stars came out in their full number, thick across the black. People watched them, they gave them names, made shapes out of them, and told stories about how they got there. The same bright stars and the pale band of the Milky Way that you might glance at tonight were watched night after night by people who had nothing else to look at. Now, you might think all of this was a waste of time. They had so little and so much to worry about. Why spend the evening carving a flute or stringing beads or painting a wall? But none of it was wasted. This was the useful part. When children play, they're learning. They're practicing how to move, how to share, how to handle each other. When people sit around a fire and tell stories, they're passing on everything they know, wrapped in something people actually want to listen to. How to hunt, who your people are, what's dangerous, what happened before you were born. The music and the dancing pulled the group together and made strangers into something like family. The flute and the firelight stories and the painting wall are the same thread that runs all the way to the present, to schools and songs, in the pictures on your walls. So, the next time you have an empty evening and you reach for something to fill it, a song, a game, a story, a picture you made for no reason except that you wanted to, you're not doing anything new. You're doing one of the oldest things there is. People sat around a fire 40,000 years ago and looked for exactly the same thing you're looking for right now. Something to play, something to listen to, someone to sit with. We never really stopped.